What's good, man? What's going on with y'all boys? Welcome back. I know it's been a minute. We ain't made a video in like 36 years or something like that, bro. I don't know how long it's been. But look, we're back. First things first, let's get this out the way right now. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn your notifications on. We back, baby. It's lit. Let's jump into it. Before y'all start trying to tell me I'm wrong and lie, sources will be cited. I will give y'all the books. I will give y'all where you can find this information, because this isn't secret information. They just don't advertise the information. You feel me? Before we can talk about humans themselves, the earthlings, we have to credit the people that brought us to where we are. They're not necessarily people, but they were beings from another planet. Now, I'm about to lose some of y'all. I already feel it. I just lost somebody. But listen. This is cited. There are stone tablets that are over tens of thousands of decades old that predate a lot of the books that we have now that talk about these things. If you go to the ancient Sumerians, you go to the ancient Babylonians, the Greeks, the ancient Egyptians, they reference this pantheon of beings, basically kickstarted each of their civilizations. And they would just show up, teach people technology and things of that nature. But the real question is, who is this group? If you look across all of these different mythologies, across all of these old civilizations, you realize that they're talking about the same group of people. But the real question is, who are these people? Where did they come from? And why do we worship them as gods? All right, man. So we got to start way back. We have to go all the way back to before the earth was created. In the beginning, there was a larger planet that went by the name of Tiamat. Tiamat was then ended up being striked by a rogue planet floating throughout the solar system that went by the name of Nibiru, right? So when Nibiru hit Tiamat, it then ended up splitting the planet into what we have in our solar system now: Earth, the asteroid belt, and I believe our moon as well. But the thing about Tiamat was known for having gold veins. So when Nibiru hit Tiamat and it broke Tiamat into different pieces, the gold veins landed in what we now call Earth, while the lower half of Tiamat became the moon and the asteroid belt, while Nibiru went back into its normal rotation. So eventually this planet Nibiru ended up to begin to grow life. Life ended up going through its phases. The people on that planet went through its phases, and they eventually came to a point where they united, right? So the planet was split between the northern half and the southern half, and they had a war. And once the war was over, they united and became under one king. So they would take a male from the southern half and he would marry somebody from the northern half, or vice versa, and they were the royal couple, and their lineage is what will rule the rest of the planet. They literally united as a planet. They were past race, they were past religion, they were past all of that. They united as a single planet. They were like, I'm from Nibiru. They're Nibiruans. Like, that's what they were. Nothing more, nothing less. There was no other breakdown. There was no diversity. They were Nibiru. Once that happened, they ended up having kings. The way they kept this bloodline, so the king would have a wife. He'd have the first wife. That would be the queen, right? And then from there, everybody after the queen would be a concubine. And the goal was to have a son from the first wife that could be of royal blood, and then fuck around with the concubines and hopefully have a bunch of daughters that the son can choose from. So technically, the son isn't really dating a direct like relative, but it's like a half sister. That's the way they would set it up. That's how they kept the royal blood in the family. That's where this idea of having multiple women comes from, or some other things that I'm not going to jump into. During this kingship in Nibiru, there was a lot of peace. There wasn't a lot of like rebellion. There wasn't any talks of rebellion. Nibiru was in a peaceful place. But eventually, 7 kings in, one guy named Lamu begins to mess up. You feel me? He wasn't direct king of the original king. The first of these kings to rule on the planet Nibiru was named An. His son would marry his half sister, and so on and so forth. They eventually had to switch up some rules as they went down the king's line, because sometimes what would happen was the firstborn son of the king would be to a concubine instead of the queen. So then they were like, well, do we let the concubine son be the king, or do we let the queen's son be the king, even though it goes against our rule of the firstborn is going to be the king? So they eventually decided that the queen's son is going to be the king, and it has to be the firstborn of the queen and not of any concubines. But the firstborn son of the queen would marry daughters of the concubines to keep the throne in a royal bloodline. Now, when we get to the 7th king, his name is Lamu, right? But the thing about Lamu was, before Lamu, one of the sons of the concubines had to become king because the queen didn't provide a son. So it wasn't a direct descendant of the king's bloodline, which eventually he ended up marrying for love instead of for royal seed. So now you have Lamu, who is of no royal descent, and he's now on the throne. But he also is making bad decisions. That has nothing to do with his bloodline. He's just making bad decisions. But what happens is the people end up going into unrest. They don't fuck with this nigga. He's out here making bad rules. He's leading for money. He's starving people. It's bad. They went into an uproar, straight revolt. All the men of Nibiru went and grabbed weapons. The princes as well, the other princes of the concubines, they grabbed weapons. And what they did was they went to the castle and they fought that nigga Lamu. They ran up on that nigga and they fought him. And it was one of the other princes that ended up actually killing him. He went by the name Alalu. Alalu gets into this wrestling match with Lamu and he pushes him out the window. He falls out the top of the castle, hits the ground, dies on impact. Lamu is now dead. Alalu runs to the throne, right? He's running there. He sits on the throne and he's like, I'm now king because I killed the king. I'm the king and I'm of royal descent. But the issue with that was they had a checking system. There were 7 wise people on the planet and they were judges. They were judge the situation and come to the best solution for the planet. Half the planet was upset with the way that Alalu took the throne, while the other half of the planet was perfectly fine with it. They was like, we fucks with my boy. I like the fact that he got that nigga out of there and now he got us about to do better. Sad part was Alalu wasn't any better than his predecessor, Lamu. And there was no real proof that he was even a descendant of An, the original king. So what ends up happening is another guy steps out and he's like, my name is Anu. I'm a descendant of An, right? And he's like, I'm a descendant by An's third son, the son that everybody forgot about. He's a descendant from the third son. So they're like, okay, but we already have a king. So what's going to happen is if Alalu is to die, right, we're going to give the throne to Anu. But until then, Anu is going to be his cupbearer. You're going to bear his cup. You're going to bring him his cup. You're going to bow at his feet and be his servant until he dies. And then if you're still alive, you'll be the next king. That ends up going on. And Anu's getting pissed day by day. He's getting upset because Alalu is a horrible king. The planet was in a time in its orbit where it was too far out from the sun. So they started to diminish the atmosphere because the planet wasn't providing enough heat for the atmosphere to protect them from space. You feel me? From freezing temperatures, things of that nature. So that was affecting cattle. That was affecting the people. That was affecting everything on the planet. They were basically slowly dying. If they don't do anything, they're going to die, right? And this is happening while Alalu is king. He's not doing anything to fix it. They've come to the conclusion of, all right, we've shot some things into the atmosphere. Every time we shoot something up, it just drops back down. There's nothing that can like save us from this. But then they find this metal that they can grind down into a nice powder. And when they shoot it into the atmosphere, it stays there. This metal is called gold. This is what they would grind down gold, shoot it into their atmosphere, and protect them from the heat of the sun when they came back into their rotation, because their atmosphere was damaged because of lack of heat from the planet. To make up for the lack of heat, they had a gold shield. They basically had a shield around their planet, and it was gold. So imagine, like, you know, like when you look at the planet and there's like this blue glow around it. Imagine if that glow was just gold. That's what their planet looked like. But the planet itself was red. So imagine Mars with a gold fucking aura. Probably beautiful as fuck. It's probably a beautiful ass planet. They probably really felt like they was the shit, which they probably were, because you also got to understand, to get to a level of planetary unity, it takes a level of spirituality as well, because they were beyond regular science. They were into spirit science at that point. Like, these were people that were highly enlightened. They still had the emotions that regular people have. There's no way around that. You feel me? They were spiritually enlightened enough to work together, to understand the fact of, as long as we're together as a planet, that's how we survive. This is what we call type 1 civilization. They have spaceships to go to different planets. They was colonizing different planets. They literally had planets that they would give out to their generals. Each general will own a different planet. All right, so at this point, Alalu's not doing anything to fix it after he knows that we can shoot gold up there. But the issue is there's a lack of gold on the bureau. They don't have gold in abundance to where they can just go grab some gold and then shoot it up there. So there's nothing really that Alalu can do, but he also ain't doing nothing to fix it. So everybody's upset at this point. The same way they were with Lamu, they're now on the same thing with Alalu. But before they can murder Alalu like they did Lamu, Anu steps up and he's like, I challenge you to hand-to-hand combat, my nigga. And then Alalu was like, nigga, bet. Say less. Let's run this shit. So they stripped down and they fought. According to the tablets, Alalu bent the knee, Anu won, and Anu then became king. But before anybody could realize what was going on and why they were still celebrating, Alalu got the fuck out of there because he was like, y'all not about to do me like I did the last nigga. I know that for sure. So he dipped, ran, hopped in a spaceship, and was like, you know what? This is what I'm gonna do. Because he knew about the story of Tiamat. He knew about how this history of Nibiru and Tiamat. He knew that Tiamat had golden veins, and if he could find Ki, which is their word for earth, then he would find the gold that was needed to save Nibiru, and they wouldn't have no choice but to make him king. I mean, it sounds like a solid plan to me. I'm not gonna lie to you. He steals the ship, takes off, but this particular ship had what they called weapons of mass destruction. They had multiple weapons of mass destruction on this ship that they had outlawed to never use, but he had to use it in order to break through the asteroid belt in order to get to Earth. Because if he tried to just regularly fly through the asteroid belt, the ship would be tore up, he wouldn't make it. He used the weapons of mass destruction to get through the asteroid belt. Once he got through the asteroid belt, he began to fly past Saturn, Jupiter, all the gas planets. He flew past those, and then he eventually ended up coming to Earth. I know it feels like I'm sharing this in a lot of detail, but it goes into more detail than what I'm sharing this stuff in. Like, if this story interests you, read the book. If you don't feel like reading the book and you're like, nah, nigga, I'm gonna just listen to you tell it, that's what I'm here for. That's fine too. Do your thing, player. Alalu just broke through the asteroid belt with the weapons of mass destruction. He is now on the other side of the asteroid belt, and he is flying past our friends, the gas giants. I don't know what all of them are, so I'm not even gonna try to name them. I'm not doing it. I don't know what you're waiting for. I'm not gonna do that. Make sure you subscribe though. Flies past these gas giants. He then comes along upon our friends Mars, which I believe they call Lahamu, and they also comes along Earth. He's lit because he's sending a laser from the ship down to Earth. He's scanning the Earth. They literally had planet scanning technology on their ship. So they could, on the ship, he was able to shoot a laser down to the planet. The laser would scan the planet for whatever it was that they were looking for. He just so happened to be looking for gold. And sure enough, he had found Tiamat's golden veins right there in Earth. And he just showed up on the scanner. He was lit in a bitch. He was like, you know what, fuck it. We're just going to crash land it. Because you also got to remember, this isn't a guy that normally flows ships. He was the king. He didn't have to do none of that. He went out from time to time, but it wasn't his job. So he just slowly gets into Earth's orbit, follows the orbit until he crash lands in the water. He jumps out the ship. He's in the water on Earth, and he puts his gold scanner in the water. Sure enough, there's gold in the damn water. He is ecstatic. He's like, I did it. I saved Nibiru. These niggas ain't got no choice but to name me king. I'm gonna be a god amongst these little ass niggas. Y'all gonna have to keep on watching for part 2, 3, 4, and it'll come out when it comes out. All right, man, if you made it all the way to the end, I appreciate you for watching the video. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe. If you want part 2, comment part 2. You can find me on Instagram at DuffelBagTone, as well as DuffelBagTone on Twitter. Also, make sure you add We Major on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, We Major Anime, We Major Fitness. We out here, baby. I'm just telling you, just go do it. Like, what?